The sun sets over the Mariana Islands, March 9, 1945. On runways stretching across Guam, Saipan, and Tinian, ground crews perform final checks on 325 Boeing B-29 Superfortress bombers. Each aircraft represents American industrial might. $3 billion invested in the program, more than the Manhattan Project, the most technologically advanced bomber ever built. But tonight, these silver giants will fly differently than ever before. Major General Curtis LeMay has ordered something radical. Strip out most defensive guns, remove gunners, reduce crew weight. The reason? Carry more bombs. Not high-explosive bombs, incendiaries. Each B-29 will carry 7 tons instead of the usual 3.5. In bomb bays packed beyond normal capacity, crews load cluster bombs. E-46 aimable clusters, each containing 38 M69 incendiary bomblets. Each bomblet, 6 pounds of jellied gasoline. Cannot be extinguished with water. The target is Tokyo. Not military installations. Not factories. The Shitamachi district, where 750,000 people live in wooden homes packed into just 12 square miles. Working-class neighborhoods where families have lived for generations. Where cottage industries produce war materials in small workshops integrated within residential areas. At 17:35 hours, the first B-29 lifts off from Guam's North Field. Through gathering darkness comes the roar of 4 Wright R-350 engines. Bomber after bomber takes to the skies, flying individually rather than formation, stripped of protection to carry maximum destruction. The crews have been briefed. Fly low, 5,000 to 7,000 feet, a fraction of designed bombing altitude. Below the jet stream, where accuracy improves, but defenses can reach them. Where Japanese anti-aircraft guns and night fighters have chance to strike back. Leading the attack are Pathfinder aircraft. They will mark the target with burning X visible from miles away. The main force will follow, dropping incendiaries from low altitude, creating concentration of fire unprecedented in warfare. What none of the American crews fully comprehend yet is the scale of what they're about to unleash. 424,000 incendiary bomblets will fall on Tokyo tonight, in perfect conditions for fire. Clear skies, strong surface winds, dry season, wooden city. The mathematical certainty is inescapable. This density of incendiaries, this concentration of fire, this combustible target, the separate fires will merge. Create conflagration. Temperatures will exceed limits human bodies can survive. Infrastructure will melt. Asphalt will ignite. The wind will spread flames faster than people can run. 100,000 people will die tonight. More than either atomic bomb will kill immediately. 267,000 buildings will burn. 1 million people will lose their homes. 15 square miles of Tokyo will cease to exist. Japan's air defenses are inadequate. Fewer than 500 anti-aircraft guns protecting entire metropolitan area, perhaps 200 operational night fighters throughout home islands. No radar for night interception, no fire control systems, searchlights and visual identification against fast-moving bombers in darkness. The crews don't know this yet, but they're about to participate in history's most destructive air raid, Operation Meeting House. The night American incendiary warfare achieves its terrible perfection. The night Tokyo burns. 14 hours to target. The sun disappears. The bombers fly through darkness toward Japanese coast. Mount Fuji will be their navigation checkpoint. Then Tokyo, then the Firestorm. The opening hook of history's deadliest night is already written in flame. The B-29 Superfortress was impossible aircraft made real through American industrial determination. Design began 1938. Army Air Corps wanted bomber capable of flying 5,000 miles, carrying 1 ton of bombs. Requirements seemed impossible. Existing technology couldn't achieve this. Engineers said it couldn't be done. Boeing accepted the challenge anyway. Created aircraft requiring 1.4 million engineering man-hours to design. Revolutionary features never before combined in single aircraft. Pressurized crew compartments allowing high-altitude flight without oxygen masks. Remote-controlled gun turrets operated by central fire control computer. Most powerful piston engines ever fitted to aircraft. 4 Wright R-3350 duplex Cyclone engines, each producing 2,200 horsepower. 18 cylinders arranged in 2 rows. Superchargers maintaining power at altitude. These engines pushed technological limits. Overheating problems plagued early models. Magnesium components caught fire. Crews called them wrong engines because everything that could go wrong did. Manufacturing was distributed nationwide. Boeing produced bombers at Seattle, Renton, Wichita, Glenn L. Martin Company at Omaha, Bell Aircraft Corporation at Marietta, Georgia. Coordination across these facilities was unprecedented. Parts standardized so components from any factory fit any aircraft. Each B-29 stretched 99 feet length. Wingspan 141 feet. Could carry 20,000 pounds of bombs over combat radius of 1,600 miles. Maximum altitude 31,850 feet. Maximum speed 357 miles per hour. The program cost $3 billion. More than Manhattan projects, $1.9 billion. Most expensive military project of war, required presidential priority to keep resources flowing. By March 1945, approximately 2,000 B-29 seconds delivered to combat units, production accelerating toward eventual wartime total of 3,970 aircraft. Plant alone produced 4.2 Superfortresses per working day. Assembly lines running 24 hours. Specialized workers performing specific tasks repeatedly. Statistical quality control ensuring consistency. Every aircraft identical. Every part interchangeable. The 20th Air Force, commanded personally by General Henry Hap Arnold, deployed these strategic bombers first from bases in China, beginning June of 1944. Then from newly captured Mariana Islands, starting November 17th, the 21st Bomber Command operated 3 bombardment wings from Marianas, 73rd Bombardment Wing and 313th, based on Saipan, 314th on Guam. These units could deploy over 300 B-29 seconds for single mission. Each aircraft maintained by specialized ground crews working around clock. Mechanics understood every system. Ordnance crews loaded bombs with precision. Fuel specialists ensured tanks were filled correctly. Flight line coordination was industrial ballet. But through February 1945, strategic bombing campaign failed to achieve decisive results. High-altitude precision bombing from 30,000 feet proved ineffective. Jet stream winds exceeding 200 miles per hour scattered bombs miles from intended targets. Cloud cover obscured targets 70% of time. Radar bombing was primitive. Engine strain from climbing to altitude with heavy loads caused frequent mechanical failures. Major General Curtis LeMay assumed command 21st Bomber Command January 1945. Inherited ineffective campaign. Studied the problems systematically, analyzed every failure, consulted with crews, examined intelligence reports, then made revolutionary decision that would transform air war against Japan. The impossible aircraft would now be used in impossible way. Low altitude, night attacks. Maximum, incendiaries. Everything Conventional doctrine said not to do. LeMay was about to prove conventional doctrine wrong. Curtis LeMay's radical decision came from systematic analysis of failure. High-altitude precision bombing wasn't working. Statistics proved it: hundreds of sorties, thousands of bombs dropped, minimal damage to Japanese war production, unacceptable losses of aircraft and crews. Something had to change. The problems were multiple and compounding. Jet stream at 30,000 feet created winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. Bombardiers couldn't compensate accurately. Bombs scattered across miles. Cloud cover obscured targets constantly. Radar technology was primitive. Images unclear. Precision impossible. The B-29's sophisticated Norden bombsight was useless when clouds blocked visual targeting. Radar bombing required experienced operators and still achieved poor accuracy. Circular error, probable measured in miles, not feet. Against point targets like factories, this meant most bombs missed completely. Engine problems multiplied at altitude. Right, 3,350 engines, stressed by climbing to 30,000 feet with maximum bomb loads. Magnesium components overheating beyond safe temperatures. Cylinders cracking. Oil systems failing. Mechanical failures forcing bombers to abort missions or crash. Loss rates from mechanical failure exceeded combat losses. Japanese air defenses, while inadequate overall, achieved occasional successes at high altitude. Fighters climbing to intercept. Anti-aircraft fire reaching bomber formations. The combination of mechanical failures and combat losses was unsustainable. LeMay studied incendiary bombing tests conducted at WWII Proving Ground in Utah. Army engineers built replica Japanese neighborhoods, authentic construction. Wooden frames, paper walls, tatami mats, everything matching Tokyo architecture. Then, tested incendiary weapons systematically. The M69 incendiary bomblet proved devastatingly effective. 6-pound hexagonal steel pipe, 20 inches long, 3 inches diameter, filled with napalm, jellied gasoline developed by Standard Oil and Harvard University scientists. Unlike thermite or magnesium that burned hotter but could be extinguished, napalm adhered to surfaces, resisted water, burned at 1800 degrees, dropped in E-46 aimable clusters of 38 bomblets. Clusters separated at 2,000 feet. Each M69 deployed cotton streamer orienting fuse downward. Upon impact, time delay fuse burned 3 to 5 seconds. Then white phosphorus charge ignited, dispersing flaming napalm up to 100 feet in multiple directions. The delayed action was genius. Ensured weapon would be lying on side when detonated, maximizing spread of incendiary material through buildings, creating multiple ignition points. Testing showed single B-29 carrying 40 clusters, 1,520 individual bomblets, could ignite massive area. LeMay calculated that low-altitude attacks would solve multiple problems: avoid jet stream entirely, fly at 5,000 to 7,000 feet, where winds were manageable, improve accuracy dramatically, reduce engine strain, increase bomb loads by removing defensive armament. The last decision was most radical: strip out most defensive guns except tail position, remove gunners, reduce crew from 11 to 7, use saved weight for additional incendiaries. Each B-29 could carry 7 tons instead of 3.5 tons. Night attacks would minimize fighter threat. Japanese night fighters lacked radar, depended on searchlights and visual identification. In darkness, interception probability dropped dramatically. Anti-aircraft guns without fire control radar were nearly useless at night. The target selection reflected strategic reality. Japanese war production occurred in small workshops integrated within residential areas. cottage industries producing aircraft parts, electrical equipment, precision instruments in family businesses. Destroying these required area bombing of residential zones. Intelligence officers consulted maps from Office of Strategic Services, ranked Tokyo wards by infrastructure density, selected Shitamachi District in northeastern Tokyo, Asakusa, Honjo, Fukagawa wards, working-class neighborhoods. Extremely high population density. Wooden structures separated by narrow alleys. Perfect target for incendiary attack. Weather forecasters predicted ideal conditions for March 9th to 10th. Clear skies. Strong surface winds that would spread fires. Dry season meaning maximum combustibility. Everything aligned for maximum destruction. LeMay's decision was calculated gamble based on systematic analysis. Low altitude increased vulnerability but improved accuracy. Removing guns reduced defensive capability but increased bomb loads. Night attacks reduced fighter threat but complicated navigation. Everything traded safety for effectiveness. The beginning was analytical. The execution would be apocalyptic. Between military requirements and scientific innovation. Standard Oil Development Company created napalm through extensive chemical research. Problem was simple. Create substance that burns longer and hotter than gasoline while resisting extinguishment. Solution required understanding polymer chemistry and combustion physics. Napalm, name derived from naphthenic and palmitic acids used in production, transformed liquid gasoline into gel. The jellified fuel adhered to surfaces, couldn't be washed away with water, actually spread when water applied. Burned at 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, temperature sufficient to ignite wood, melt glass, destroy metal infrastructure. Harvard University scientists contributed analytical studies on fire propagation patterns, examined how fires spread through different materials, calculated optimal spacing for maximum effect, determined that multiple small ignition points created more total destruction than single large fire. Bomb design. University of Chicago provided research on urban fire behavior, studied historical conflagrations. Great Chicago Fire of 1871, San Francisco earthquake fires of 1906, Hamburg firestorm of 1943. Identified conditions creating self-sustaining firestorms. The key discovery was confluence effect. Individual fires merge when density exceeds critical threshold. Combined fires create superheated updrafts. These updrafts generate ground-level winds. Winds spread flames to new areas, creating positive feedback loop. Firestorm becomes self-perpetuating. Chemical Warfare Service constructed detailed replicas at WWII Proving Ground, used pre-war architectural plans obtained from Japanese sources, built authentic Japanese residential structures, wooden frames, paper walls, tatami mats, sliding doors, everything matching actual Tokyo construction. Testing proved M69's devastating effectiveness. Single bomblet could ignite entire building. Cluster of 38 bomblets created multiple ignition points across wide area. 40 clusters from one B-29 could ignite several city blocks. Hundreds of B-29 seconds could ignite entire districts. The delayed fuse was critical innovation. 3 to 5 second delay meant bomblet penetrated roof, fell through attic, landed on floor before detonating. Maximized effectiveness by igniting structure from inside. Immediate detonation would create surface fire easily extinguished. Internal ignition made firefighting nearly impossible. The cotton streamer ensured proper orientation. Bomblet fell nose down. Fuse faced floor. Detonation dispersed napalm horizontally, created flaming spray covering 100 feet radius. Single M69 started dozens of separate fires overwhelming firefighting capabilities. American planners calculated required density, 424,000 bomblets across 12 square miles, average of 35,000 bomblets per square mile. This density exceeded critical threshold for firestorm formation. Separate fires would inevitably merge. Wind conditions were crucial variable. Strong surface winds spread flames between buildings, but excessive winds might blow fires out. Optimal range, 17 to 45 miles per hour. March 9th forecast predicted exactly these conditions. Japanese architecture made perfect target. Wooden construction predominated. Paper walls provided no fire resistance. Narrow alleys created wind tunnels. Dense population meant buildings close together. Everything optimized for fire spread. Tokyo's geography amplified vulnerability. Built on flat plain. No natural fire breaks. Rivers provided some barriers, but bridges connected districts. Downtown area was continuous wooden city, stretching miles. The discovery was complete system of urban destruction. Chemistry creating napalm. Physics understanding fire propagation. Engineering designing optimal bomblet. Intelligence selecting perfect target. Meteorology predicting ideal conditions. Everything converged for maximum effect. Japanese defenders had no counter. No protective equipment against 1800-degree fires. No water pressure for large-scale firefighting. No fire breaks to contain spread. No evacuation plans for mass population. No shelters providing adequate protection. The scientific approach to warfare demonstrated American methodology. Problem identified. Destroy Japanese war production. Research conducted. Understand fire physics and Japanese architecture. Solution designed. M69 incendiary with napalm. Testing validated. WWII proving ground. Application planned. Operation Meeting House. The discovery wasn't accidental. It was systematic engineering of destruction. Science applied to strategic bombing. The result would exceed all predictions. The crew's initial reaction to LeMay's plan was disbelief bordering on mutiny. Remove defensive guns, fly at 5,000 feet, attack at night. Every element contradicted training and doctrine. Bomber crews relied on defensive armament for survival, mutual supporting fire from formation, high altitude for protection. Everything they'd learned said this was suicide. Senior officers questioned the decision. Removing guns meant relying entirely on darkness for protection. What if Japanese searchlights found them? What if night fighters intercepted? At 5,000 feet, anti-aircraft fire would be deadly accurate. One hit could down bomber. LeMay's response was statistical and cold. High-altitude missions achieved minimal results. Unacceptable loss rates from mechanical failures. Jet stream made accurate bombing impossible. Current tactics were failing. New approach was necessary. The risk calculation was brutal. Daytime, high-altitude missions. Heavy mechanical losses, poor accuracy, minimal damage. Nighttime, low-altitude missions. Reduced mechanical stress, excellent accuracy, maximum damage. Risk transferred from mechanical failure to enemy action. But enemy night defenses were inadequate. Intelligence reports supported LeMay's assessment. Japanese night fighter force numbered perhaps 200 operational aircraft throughout home islands, no airborne radar. Depended on ground-directed interception using searchlights. Visual identification in darkness was nearly impossible, especially once fires created smoke and confusion. Anti-aircraft defenses were quantified. Tokyo possessed fewer than 500 heavy guns, defending entire metropolitan area. Type 88 mm, providing high-altitude defense. Type 98 20 mm for close range. Without fire control radar, night effectiveness was minimal. The real protection would be darkness itself and speed of execution. Individual aircraft approaching from different directions over several hours, not concentrated formations. Japanese defenses couldn't track multiple targets arriving continuously. Searchlights would be overwhelmed. Fighters couldn't be everywhere. Weather forecasting provided additional edge. March 9th predicted clear skies with strong surface winds, perfect visibility for navigation and bombing. Winds would spread fires rapidly. Japanese firefighting would be overwhelmed immediately. Navigator crews studied routes carefully. Lauran radio navigation signals provided precise positioning. Mount Fuji's distinctive silhouette was unmistakable checkpoint. Approach to Tokyo was straightforward. Individual navigation reduced mid-air collision risk. Bombardiers adjusted to low-altitude parameters. Traditional high-altitude bombing used Norden bombsight, calculating ballistics for 30,000 feet. Low-altitude attacks simplified enormously. Visual identification of burning markers. Simple trajectory calculations. Accuracy would be excellent. The stripped-down aircraft flew differently. Lighter without guns and gunners. Better climb performance. Increased speed. Greater maneuverability. Crews discovered unexpected benefits. Loading 7 tons of incendiaries still left aircraft lighter than maximum load high-altitude missions. Training missions proved the concept. Practice runs at low altitude over ocean. Navigation exercises using radio beacons. Timed approaches simulating continuous stream. Crews gained confidence as procedures became familiar. February 25th preliminary raid tested tactics. Relatively small force attacking Tokyo at low altitude with incendiaries. Results exceeded expectations. 28,000 buildings destroyed. Minimal losses. Proof that concept worked. Japanese defenses couldn't stop low-altitude night attacks. LeMay's gamble was paying off. The reaction evolved from skepticism to confidence. Crews understood they were part of something unprecedented, not just another bombing mission. Fundamental change in strategic air war. They would write new doctrine through execution. Loading began March 9th afternoon. Ordnance crews positioned cluster bombs in bomb bays. Careful arrangement, ensuring proper release sequence. Fuel trucks topped off tanks. Maintenance performed final checks. Everything prepared for largest incendiary raid in history. The reaction was complete. Initial disbelief replaced by professional determination. Crews would execute the mission. Tokyo would burn. American air power would demonstrate its terrible perfection. The gamble would be validated or fail spectacularly. Either way, warfare would never be same. Tokyo was world's third largest city and perfect firebomb target. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. 4 million residents living in densely packed urban area. Modern government buildings, industrial facilities, transportation infrastructure, but residential areas remained traditionally constructed. Wooden frames, paper walls, tatami mats, construction methods unchanged for centuries. Only 18 concrete air raid shelters existed for entire city. Capacity, 90,000 people, less than 3% of population. Everyone else depended on bugo, shallow trenches covered with boards, simple dugouts offering minimal protection. Against high-explosive bombs, barely adequate. Against incendiaries, useless. Fire department numbered 8,000 firefighters, equipped primarily with hand pumps and bucket brigades. Designed for peacetime emergencies, single building fires, not multiple simultaneous conflagrations. Equipment was pre-industrial. Methods were traditional. Scale was completely inadequate. Neighborhood associations organized civilian firefighting groups. Elderly residents, women, teenagers, armed with sand buckets and water containers. Training emphasized individual building protection. Save your home. Help neighbors. Traditional methods applied to modern warfare. The contradiction was fatal. Tokyo's water infrastructure couldn't support large-scale firefighting. Water pressure insufficient. Distribution system aged. Bombing damaged pipes regularly. Firefighters reached blazes. Water supply would fail quickly. System designed for normal conditions, not urban conflagration. City planning created maximum vulnerability. Shitamachi district housed 750,000 people in 12 square miles. Population density 62,000 per square mile. Buildings separated by narrow alleys, 3 to 6 feet wide. Escape routes were minimal. Fire spread was inevitable. Extended families lived in adjacent structures. Grandparents, parents, children, multiple generations in clustered homes. Social structure was beautiful. Fire propagation was catastrophic. One building igniting meant entire family compound burning. The cottage industry system distributed war production throughout residential areas. Small workshops producing aircraft parts. Electrical equipment manufactured in family businesses. Precision instruments assembled in home workshops. Military logic targeted residential zones. Civilian cost was enormous. Japanese military doctrine emphasized spiritual strength over material preparation. Citizens would endure hardship, maintain production, fight fires through determination. Official propaganda promised divine wind would protect homeland. Reality contradicted everything. Civil defense preparations remained theoretical. Evacuation plans existed on paper, never tested at scale. Designated shelters were inadequate. Emergency supplies were insufficient. Communication systems were primitive. Everything assumed small-scale incidents, not strategic bombardment. Intelligence failures compounded vulnerability. February 25th, raid destroyed 28,000 buildings. Demonstrated American capability for massive incendiary attacks, yet authorities made minimal improvements. No large-scale evacuations, no expanded shelter construction, no strategic fire breaks. Denial replaced preparation. Inter-service coordination failures prevented unified response. Army controlled some civil defense elements, Navy controlled others. Police had separate authority. No single command structure. No integrated planning. Bureaucratic contradictions guaranteed ineffective response. Military priorities contradicted civilian protection. Resources allocated to defending government facilities and military installations. Residential areas received minimal attention. Official policy demanded civilians remain at posts. Maintain production. Don't evacuate. Orders contradicted survival instincts. The meteorological contradiction was cruelest. March was dry season. Optimal fire weather. Strong winds predicted. Clear skies forecast. Everything weather-wise perfect for American attack. Everything weather-wise worst for Japanese defense. Nature conspired with technology. Cultural contradictions undermined preparation. Traditional values emphasized community, mutual support, neighborhood solidarity. But firefighting methods were individualistic, each family protecting own property. Beautiful social values became tactical weaknesses. The fundamental contradiction was attempting industrial-age warfare with pre-industrial defensive methods. American strategic bombing represented scientific warfare. Chemical engineering creating napalm. Meteorology predicting optimal conditions. Industrial production delivering unlimited munitions. Japanese response relied on bucket brigades and spiritual determination. Tokyo in March 1945 was contradiction-made geography. Modern in ambition. Traditional in construction. Vulnerable in design. Unprepared in defense. American bombers approaching with scientific destruction. Japanese defenders equipped with medieval tools. The outcome was predetermined by contradictions Japanese leaders refused to acknowledge. March 10th, 00:08 hours. The first Pathfinder B, 29 seconds, arrived over Tokyo. Flying at just 5,000 feet, they dropped M47 Napalm bombs, immediately creating visible fire markers. 4 aircraft, approaching from different directions, dropping at precise coordinates, creating enormous burning X visible for miles. The geometry was perfect. Intersection marked exact center of target zone. Weather conditions exceeded predictions. Clear visibility. Surface winds between 17 and 28 miles per hour. Gusts reaching 45. Perfect for fire spread. Temperature moderate. Humidity low. Everything optimal for combustion. Main force arrived minutes later. Bombardiers aiming for illuminated markers. No complicated calculations. Visual identification. Simple trajectory adjustments. Low altitude meant excellent accuracy. Bombs falling exactly where intended. The M69 clusters separated at 2,000 feet, creating metallic rain. Observers described them glinting in firelight. 38 bomblets per cluster, 40 clusters per aircraft. 279 aircraft reaching target. Mathematical certainty. 424,000 incendiary bomblets, falling on 12 square miles. Within minutes, thousands of individual fires erupted, each M69 detonating after 3 to 5 second delay, penetrating roofs, igniting interiors, creating multiple fire points per building. Strong winds spread flames building to building. Separate blazes merged rapidly into massive conflagration. Temperatures at ground level exceeded 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, sufficient to melt glass, vaporize wood, ignite asphalt. Metal infrastructure twisted from heat, concrete cracked from thermal stress. Streets became rivers of flame. The superheated air created powerful updrafts, generated intense wind vortices, lifted debris high into air, carried burning materials blocks away, starting new fires in previously untouched areas. The firestorm became self-perpetuating, fed itself, grew exponentially. Sound overwhelmed all other noise, roar of flames, crashing of collapsing buildings, screaming of victims, wind howling through superheated air, explosions as gas lines ruptured. Walls of sound matching walls of fire. Smoke and heat reduced visibility to feet. People running through streets couldn't see where they were going. Families became separated in confusion. Elderly residents who fell couldn't be helped. Young children wandered lost. Firefighting brigades abandoned equipment when temperatures made approach impossible. Streets became impassable. Asphalt ignited, burning at 600 degrees. Wooden buildings collapsed, blocking alleys, creating deadly traps. People trying to escape found routes blocked, forced back into flames. Surrounded by fire on all sides, water sources provided no safety. River temperatures rose from falling debris. Canals filled with desperate people, too many seeking refuge simultaneously. Some drowned in rush. Others died from heat exposure. Water itself became death trap. At Sumida River, thousands converged, seeking escape from flames. Warehouses on both banks engulfed, burning debris falling into water. Wind carrying flames across surface. Those who entered water faced extreme temperatures. Those who stayed ashore faced fire. No good options existed. Designated evacuation centers became surrounded by flames. Kikukawa Elementary School, assigned shelter, became crematorium. Investigators later found only metal objects and remains among ashes. Hundreds who sought safety there died together. Buddhist temples, centuries old, were destroyed. Those sheltering there perished. Historical buildings that survived earthquakes, wars, centuries of history, eliminated in hours. Along with everyone inside, police stations tried maintaining order. Hospitals attempted treating injured. Administrative buildings coordinated response. All became surrounded by fire. Infrastructure collapsed. Communication failed. Organization dissolved. Every institution overwhelmed simultaneously. The investigation after dawn revealed scope impossible to comprehend. 15 square miles of Tokyo simply gone. Where dense urban neighborhoods existed, only ash-covered ground remained. Concrete and brick structures standing isolated. Everything else vaporized. Bodies were everywhere and nowhere. Some areas so hot that human remains were completely incinerated. Other locations preserved victims in grotesque positions, reaching for water, shielding children, running from flames, death captured in ash. The firestorm had exceeded every prediction, created conditions beyond human survival, demonstrated American incendiary warfare's terrible perfection, proven that modern technology could eliminate urban areas in single night. The investigation was just beginning. The horror was complete. American strategic theory was systematic destruction of Japanese war production. Intelligence analysis revealed that cottage industries produced significant military materials, aircraft parts manufactured in small workshops, electrical components assembled in family businesses, precision instruments, skilled artisans working from homes. Military production was distributed throughout residential areas. Traditional precision bombing couldn't eliminate this distributed production. Individual workshops were too small for targeted strikes. High-altitude bombing lacked accuracy to hit specific buildings. Only area attacks could destroy cottage industries comprehensively. This required accepting civilian casualties. The theory of economic warfare emphasized destroying productive capacity. Japanese military depended on these small workshops. Eliminating them would cripple aircraft production, damage electrical equipment supply, reduce precision instrument availability. Strategic impact justified tactical methods. Fire theory predicted that incendiary attacks would achieve maximum destruction with minimum resources. Explosive bombs created craters but left surrounding structures intact. Incendiaries ignited wooden construction. Fires spread naturally. One bomber load could destroy area, requiring dozens of explosive bomb loads. Meteorological theory incorporated weather as force multiplier. Strong winds spread flames. Dry conditions maximized combustibility. Clear skies ensured accuracy. Coordinating attacks with optimal weather conditions multiplied effectiveness exponentially. Japanese theory emphasized civilian resilience and spiritual determination. Population would endure hardships, maintain production despite attacks, fight fires through community cooperation. Traditional values of perseverance and mutual support would overcome material challenges. Military authorities believed civilians would follow orders, remain at posts, continue working, accept casualties as necessary sacrifice. Individual suffering was acceptable when national survival was at stake. Theory assumed population would prioritize duty over personal safety. Firefighting theory relied on traditional methods, scaled up, more bucket brigades, better organization, stricter discipline. Japanese authorities believed that existing approaches applied more vigorously would contain fires. They underestimated physics of firestorm. The theory of strategic bombing assumed morale effects. Civilian suffering would pressure government. Public opinion would demand peace. Bombing cities would create political pressure, forcing surrender. This psychological warfare theory influenced target selection. Architectural vulnerability theory identified wooden construction as critical weakness. Japanese residential areas were optimized for fire spread. Narrow alleys, dense population, continuous wooden structures. American planners recognized this and designed attacks exploiting these characteristics. Resource depletion theory calculated that destroying urban areas eliminated war production capacity. Workers killed or displaced couldn't produce. Facilities burned couldn't manufacture. Supply chains disrupted couldn't deliver. Each city destroyed reduced Japanese military capability. The ethical theory employed by American leadership justified civilian casualties through strategic necessity. Total war eliminated distinction between military and civilian targets. Everyone contributed to war effort. Everyone was legitimate target. Victory required maximum destruction. Japanese counter-theory emphasized that attacking civilians violated military honor, that American tactics represented moral failing, that Japan's traditional values were superior despite material disadvantage. This theory provided psychological comfort but no practical defense. The theories collided March 10th. American systematic destruction versus Japanese spiritual resistance. Industrial firepower versus traditional firefighting. Scientific warfare versus cultural values. Area bombardment versus individual resilience. Reality validated American theories absolutely. Cottage industries were destroyed comprehensively. Fire spread exactly as predicted. Weather conditions multiplied effectiveness. Civilian firefighting proved completely inadequate. Firestorm exceeded containment capabilities. Japanese theories failed catastrophically. Spiritual determination couldn't extinguish 1800-degree fires. Traditional methods couldn't contain conflagration. Community cooperation dissolved in chaos. Remaining at posts meant dying at posts. Theory met reality. Reality won decisively. The investigation afterward examined why Japanese theories failed so completely. Fundamental misunderstanding of industrial warfare. Refusal to acknowledge technological gap. Cultural values preventing realistic assessment. Pride replacing pragmatism. Everything that made Japanese military culture strong in traditional warfare became weakness in modern total war. American theories proved sound. Strategic bombing achieved intended results. Distributed production was eliminated. Civilian morale was shattered. War production capacity was destroyed. Each city burned brought surrender closer. Theory became practice. Practice validated theory. The deeper mystery was why separate fires merged into single apocalyptic firestorm. Multiple ignition points created by 424,000 incendiary bomblets, each M69 starting dozens of fires. Total ignition points exceeded 1 million across 12 square miles. Density far exceeded critical threshold for firestorm formation. Individual fires created heat. Heat generated updrafts. Hot air rising created low pressure at ground level. Low pressure pulled surrounding air toward fires. This created winds at ground level. Winds carried flames to new structures. New structures ignited. Process repeated exponentially. When fire density exceeded critical point, individual updrafts merged, created single massive convection column. This super updraft pulled air from entire surrounding area. Ground-level winds strengthened dramatically. Reached hurricane force, 60 to 70 miles per hour. These winds spread flames faster than humans could run. The self-sustaining aspect was critical. Once firestorm formed, it fed itself, required no external input, consumed everything combustible, generated own wind system, created own weather, became living entity of destruction. Stopping it was impossible. Only burning out all fuel would end it. Temperature gradients created additional effects. Superheated air at fire center rose rapidly. Cooler air rushed in from periphery. This circulation pattern created vortices, tornado-like columns of flame. These fire tornadoes could lift debris, carry burning materials miles away, start new fires in distant areas. Oxygen depletion in fire center created survival impossibility. Combustion consumed oxygen, replaced it with carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. People in shelters suffocated from oxygen starvation. Others died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Even those avoiding flames died from atmospheric effects. Radiant heat extended killing zone beyond. Actual flames. Temperatures of 1800 degrees radiated outward. Human bodies exposed to this heat suffered instant burns. Clothing ignited spontaneously. Exposed skin blistered and charred. Death occurred from thermal radiation before flames arrived. Thermal expansion of air created acoustic effects. The roar was deafening, described by survivors as sound from hell. Combination of flames, wind, collapsing buildings, exploding gas lines, sound itself became weapon. Disorienting, terrifying, preventing communication or coordination. Infrastructure melted systematically. Glass windows liquefied, metal pipes twisted, concrete structures cracked from thermal stress. Asphalt streets ignited at 600 degrees. Everything with melting point below 1800 degrees was destroyed. Urban environment transformed into slag. The mystery deepened with wind behavior. Natural wind of 17 to 45 miles per hour combined with fire-generated winds created unpredictable patterns. Flames jumped across fire breaks, ignored natural barriers, spread in unexpected directions. No safe zones existed. Water infrastructure failed completely. Underground pipes cracked from heat. Above-ground hydrants melted. Water pressure dropped to zero. Even if firefighters reached blazes, no water was available. Rivers offered only temporary refuge. Canals became death traps when too many sought safety simultaneously. Smoke effects extended far beyond fire area. Column of smoke rose to 30,000 feet, visible 100 miles away. B-29 crews reported detecting smoke at their altitude. Ash fell across Tokyo region. Sky turned dark noon. Day became night from smoke density. The psychological mystery was equally profound. Why people remained in homes initially. Why evacuation orders weren't followed. Why designated safe areas became death traps. Human behavior under extreme stress proved unpredictable. Training and drills proved inadequate for reality. The deeper mystery revealed itself through survivor testimony. Those who fled immediately survived. Those who tried saving possessions died. Those who followed official instructions perished. Those who ignored orders and ran lived. Instinct proved better guide than authority. The mystery's solution was confluence of factors. Optimal weather conditions. Maximum incendiary density. Perfect target selection. Wooden construction. High population. Inadequate defenses. Everything converged for maximum destruction. Not accident, not luck. Scientific planning producing calculated result. American planners understood the physics, studied fire behavior, designed attack for maximum effect, achieved exactly intended result. Mystery from Japanese perspective was complete knowledge from American side. Asymmetry of understanding was absolute. The casualty estimates varied significantly, but all were catastrophic. United States Strategic Bombing Survey calculated 87,793 fatalities and 40,918 injuries. Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department reported 83,793 deaths and 40,918 wounded. Tokyo Fire Department estimated 97,000 killed and 125,000 wounded. Historical consensus indicates over 100,000 people died, more than Hiroshima's immediate casualties. More than Nagasaki. Single conventional air raid killed more than either atomic bomb initially, yet received less historical attention, overshadowed by nuclear weapons' uniqueness. The physical destruction was quantifiable. 267,171 buildings destroyed, 15.8 square miles eliminated, 25% of Tokyo's structures gone, 1 million survivors homeless, unable to return, nowhere to return to. Industrial impact exceeded predictions. More than half Tokyo's manufacturing occurred in small workshops within residential areas. Their elimination comprehensively disrupted war production. Aircraft parts, electrical equipment, precision instruments, everything produced in cottage industries was lost. Thousands of skilled workers died or displaced. Craftsmen with decades of experience, irreplaceable expertise. Training new workers required years. These industries never recovered. War production capacity permanently reduced. Strategic objective achieved completely. The infrastructure implications rippled outward. Electrical distribution destroyed. Water systems damaged. Transportation networks disrupted. Communication lines severed. Urban functionality eliminated. Tokyo as economic hub was crippled. Recovery would require years. Resources Japan didn't have. Worker productivity in surviving facilities declined dramatically. Employees dealt with personal losses, housing challenges, diminished morale. Many fled city entirely. Absenteeism increased. Production quotas couldn't be met. Industrial capacity fell even in undamaged facilities. The strategic implications were immediate. Within 10 days, similar raids struck Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe, Japan's 4 largest cities. Campaign then paused. Only because 21st Bomber Command exhausted incendiary bomb supply. American factories immediately increased M69 production. The psychological implications shattered civilian morale. Refugees departing Tokyo spread accounts throughout Japan, contradicting official information about war situation, creating panic, undermining confidence. People understood homeland was defenseless against American air power. Military implications were equally severe. Japanese naval aviation already destroyed at Philippine Sea. Now homeland burning, air defenses proven inadequate. American strategic bombing unopposed. Path to invasion was opening. Japanese military position hopeless. The diplomatic implications influenced surrender calculations. Emperor Hirohito later referenced bombing campaigns as factor in decision. Continued resistance meant systematic urban destruction. Preservation of national future required ending war. Strategic bombing created conditions making surrender acceptable. American losses were minimal comparatively. 14B 29 seconds failed to return. 96 airmen killed or missing. Against Japanese losses of 100,000 civilians. Kill ratio unprecedented in warfare. Technical superiority creating mathematical certainty of destruction. The operational implications transformed Bomber Command Doctrine. LeMay's tactics were validated. Low-altitude night attacks with incendiaries became standard. High-altitude precision bombing was abandoned. Every subsequent raid followed meeting house pattern. Maximum incendiaries, minimum altitude, night attacks. Production implications showed American industrial advantage. Campaign consumed massive quantities of incendiaries. American factories increased output without strain. By mid-1945, producing 50,000 tons monthly. Japan couldn't match this. Couldn't defend against it. Couldn't replace losses. The long-term implications extended into post-war period. Operation Meeting House established precedent for strategic bombing. Demonstrated civilian areas could be legitimate military targets, influenced international law development. Created legal and ethical debates continuing decades later. The historical implications remain contested. Was strategic bombing necessary? Did it shorten war? Would invasion have caused more casualties? These questions have no definitive answers. Only certainty. 100,000 died March 10th. That single night fundamentally altered Pacific War's trajectory, opened path to surrender, demonstrated American military supremacy absolutely. The implications were final. Japanese defeat was certain. Only timing remained unknown. Strategic bombing accelerated inevitable conclusion. Made invasion unnecessary. Achieved strategic objectives through air power alone. Everything that followed, including atomic bombs, occurred in context created by Operation Meeting House. Yoshiko Hashimoto was 24 years old, living in Tokyo's Sumida district with her 13-month-old baby. Her husband, army officer, was on guard duty across city when attack began. She was home with parents, baby, sisters. Normal evening became apocalypse. The B-29 seconds were dropping numerous firebombs. It sounded like heavy rain. I was astounded by intensity. I had never seen one before. Fires spread rapidly. Her family fled through streets, filling with evacuating residents. Narrow alleys of Shitamachi became extremely dangerous. Thousands attempting escape simultaneously. Parents separated from children in confusion. Elderly residents who fell were trampled, unable to continue, left behind. Firefighting brigades abandoned equipment when temperatures made approach impossible. Professional firefighters, trained and equipped, couldn't fight. Fires burning at 1800 degrees. Civilian bucket brigades were useless. Sand and water evaporated before reaching flames. At Sumida River, Yoshiko witnessed chaos beyond description. Burning debris falling around us, wind intensifying, burning materials airborne, signboards, wooden doors, household items, warehouses on both riverbanks engulfed. Her father pushed her and baby into water, action that saved their lives. But her mother perished. Her father died. Her sister Etsuko burned. Half her immediate family gone in hours. Survivors scattered, unable to find each other in chaos. Smoke and flames separating families permanently. Across burning district, similar tragedies multiplied 100,000 times. Those entering canals faced extreme water temperatures. Others overwhelmed in rush. Thousands trying to reach water simultaneously. Some drowned, others died from heat exposure. Water became death trap. At Kikukawa Elementary School, designated shelter, hundreds sought safety. Investigators later found only metal objects and remains among ashes. Everyone who trusted official instructions died together. Following orders was fatal. Ignoring them was survival. Buddhist temples, centuries old, were destroyed. Those sheltering there perished. Historical buildings, surviving earthquakes, wars, generations, eliminated with everyone inside. Cultural heritage and human lives lost simultaneously. Police stations tried maintaining order. Hospitals attempted treating injured. Administrative buildings coordinated response. All became surrounded by flames. Infrastructure collapsed. Every institution overwhelmed. Everyone died or fled. The extreme conditions created by Inferno meant even those in shelters faced severe challenges. Heat and smoke, superheated air causing respiratory damage. Those exposed even briefly suffered. Many died from inhalation injuries without burning. Following raid, casualty identification proved impossible. Bodies incinerated completely, others unrecognizable. Families searching for relatives found nothing. No remains, no confirmation, just absence. Grief without closure. Mass funeral services continued for weeks. Unidentified remains buried collectively. Buddhist ceremonies for thousands simultaneously. Cremation was unnecessary. American bombs had already cremated victims. Only gathering ashes and praying remained. Orphans were created by thousands. Children separated from parents, never reunited. Growing up, not knowing family's fate. Elderly lost children. Parents lost babies. Siblings lost each other. Family structures shattered. Worker productivity in surviving facilities declined as employees dealt with losses. Housing challenges, diminished morale. Many fled city entirely. Absenteeism increased. Production quotas couldn't be met. Personal tragedy became economic impact. American air crews carried different burden. Many were affected by observing destruction below. Smoke detectable at operational altitudes. Visible for miles. Some crew members later requested different assignments. Struggled reconciling participation with personal values. Others focused on strategic objective, ending war quickly. Each city burned meant fewer American lives lost in invasion. Japanese aggression at Pearl Harbor. Atrocities throughout Asia. These justified maximum force. Moral calculation was complex. No simple answers existed. The humanity transcended nationality. Young American pilots executing orders. Japanese families in residential areas. Children separated from parents. Survivors dealing with profound losses. Both sides carried invisible wounds decades later. Yoshiko's testimony remains in historical archives. The memory of that night never leaves me. My mother, father, sister died while my baby and I survived. I think about them every day. Why them? Why not me? No answers exist, only grief. The final accounting revealed disparity almost incomprehensible. American losses, 14B, 29, superfortresses failed to return. 96 airmen listed killed or missing. Several bombers encountered severe turbulence from thermal updrafts. Lost control. Crashed. Others received anti-aircraft damage during low-level runs. Japanese gunners struggled tracking aircraft at unusual altitudes but achieved occasional hits. Total American casualties, 96 dead from 14 bombers, plus operational injuries. Equipment damage, nothing compared to Japanese losses. Japanese losses, over 100,000 civilians dead, 40,000 injured, 267,000 buildings destroyed, 1 million homeless, 15 square miles of Tokyo eliminated, 25% of city gone, industrial capacity crippled, infrastructure destroyed. The kill ratio was unprecedented in warfare history. 1,000 American casualties produced 100,000 Japanese casualties, ratio of 100 to 1. Mathematical certainty of technical superiority. Industrial wars, brutal calculus made absolutely manifest. The revelation wasn't just numbers, it was meaning behind numbers. 14 bombers represented replaceable equipment. American factories produced dozens weekly. Lost aircraft replaced within days. Crews were trained constantly. Pilot pipeline guaranteed replacements. 100,000 Japanese dead represented irreplaceable loss. Skilled workers with decades experience. Craftsmen producing essential war materials. Families maintaining community structure. Cultural continuity destroyed. Knowledge eliminated. Expertise lost forever. The strategic revelation transformed Pacific War. High-altitude precision bombing had failed, consumed resources, achieved minimal results. LeMay's radical new tactics succeeded spectacularly, achieved maximum destruction. Minimum losses. Strategic objectives met completely. Within 10 days, similar raids struck Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe. Japan's 4 largest cities systematically burned. Campaign paused only when incendiary supplies exhausted. But American factories immediately increased M69 production. Bombing resumed May, continued through August. By war's end, 66 Japanese cities experienced major incendiary attacks. Urban Japan was systematically destroyed before atomic bombs. Much of homeland burning already. Nuclear weapons were finale to campaign already succeeding. The tactical revelation validated LeMay's analysis. Low altitude improved accuracy dramatically, removed jet stream problems, reduced mechanical failures. Night attacks minimized fighter threat. Japanese defenses couldn't stop low-altitude night raids. Technical advantages were decisive. The technological revelation demonstrated American industrial supremacy. $3 billion B-29 program. Scientific development of napalm. Mass production of incendiaries. Weather forecasting integration. Everything showed systematic approach to warfare. Science applied to destruction. Japanese defenders had no answer. Fewer than 500 anti-aircraft guns. 200 night fighters without radar. Traditional firefighting methods. Wooden city construction. Inadequate shelters. Everything optimized for vulnerability. Nothing adequate for defense. The moral revelation remained complex. Strategic bombing achieved objectives, shortened war, saved American lives that invasion would cost, made surrender politically acceptable to Japanese leadership. Utilitarian calculation justified civilian casualties, but 100,000 civilians died in single night. Most had minimal direct military involvement. Families with children, elderly residents, workers in cottage industries. Their deaths purchased strategic victory. Moral weight of this transaction remains debated. The historical revelation was that Operation Meeting House, not atomic bombs, was most destructive single air raid. More immediate casualties than Hiroshima, more than Nagasaki. Yet received less attention historically, overshadowed by nuclear weapons uniqueness. Conventional bombing killing more than atomic bombing rarely acknowledged. The revelation extended to post-war implications. Strategic bombing precedent established. Urban areas became legitimate military targets. Distinction between military and civilian targets blurred permanently. Total war eliminated protections. Everyone became combatant. Everyone became target. International law evolved in response. Geneva Conventions updated. Protocols added protecting civilians. But damage was done. Precedent established. Modern warfare embraced total destruction as legitimate strategy. Operation Meeting House, open door never fully closed. The final revelation was certainty of outcome once American industrial might focused on objective. Japanese defeat was mathematically inevitable. Resources, technology, production capacity, everything favored America overwhelmingly. Strategic bombing demonstrated this gap absolutely. Made continued resistance obviously futile. Opened path to surrender. Operation Meeting House marked turning point from which Japanese recovery was impossible. Within 10 days after March 10th, similar raids struck Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe, Japan's 4 largest industrial cities. Campaign then paused, only because 21st Bomber Command had exhausted incendiary bomb supply. American factories immediately prioritized M69 production. Operations resumed May, continued through August. 66 Japanese cities ultimately experienced major incendiary attacks. Urban Japan systematically destroyed, industrial capacity eliminated, worker populations displaced, infrastructure devastated, homeland burning continuously for 5 months. The campaign's psychological impact exceeded physical destruction. Civilians understood homeland was defenseless. American air power operated unopposed. Traditional protections had failed. Official propaganda was exposed as lies. Morale collapsed across nation. Emperor Hirohito later referenced bombing campaigns as factor in surrender decision. Continued resistance meant systematic destruction of every city. Preservation of national future required ending war. Strategic bombing created conditions making surrender politically acceptable. The atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, August 6th and 9th, were continuation of campaign begun. March 10th, not alternatives to conventional bombing, but escalation of ongoing destruction. Nuclear weapons' uniqueness overshadowed fact that conventional incendiaries had already killed more Japanese civilians. Tokyo's firebombing killed over 100,000 immediately, more than either atomic bomb initially. Yet Operation Meeting House remains less known outside Japan. Historical memory focuses on nuclear weapons. Conventional bombing's greater immediate casualties are rarely acknowledged. The campaign validated Curtis LeMay's radical tactics completely. Low-altitude night attacks with maximum incendiaries. Minimum defensive armament. Individual aircraft navigation. Everything conventional doctrine said not to do. Everything that worked perfectly. LeMay was promoted. His methods became standard. American industrial capacity proved decisive advantage. $3 billion B-29 program. Mass production of incendiaries reaching 50,000 tons monthly. Scientific development of napalm. Weather forecasting integration. Systematic approach to warfare. Everything demonstrated American strengths. Japanese inadequacies were equally clear. Wooden city construction. Traditional firefighting methods. Inadequate shelters. Poor coordination. Limited resources. Cultural values preventing realistic assessment. Everything that made Japan strong in traditional warfare became weakness in industrial total war. The human cost transcended statistics. 100,000 dead, March 10th. Hundreds of thousands more in subsequent raids. Millions displaced. Urban Japan destroyed. Cultural heritage eliminated. Historical continuity broken. Suffering on scale difficult to comprehend. American air crews carried psychological burden. Many struggled with participation despite strategic justification. Japanese survivors lived with lasting trauma. Both sides bore invisible wounds. Families on both sides experienced irreplaceable losses. The strategic bombing campaign, culminating in atomic weapons, achieved objective. Japan surrendered August 15th, avoiding invasion that would have caused millions of casualties. Strategic calculation justified civilian targeting. Utilitarian mathematics of total war. But moral questions remain unresolved. Was urban destruction necessary? Did it shorten war significantly? Could selective targeting have achieved similar results? These debates continue. No definitive answers exist. Only certainty. 100,000 died March 10th. Contemporary military strategists study Operation Meeting House for insights about air power capabilities and limitations. Demonstrated, urban destruction alone doesn't guarantee immediate surrender. Japan continued fighting 5 months. Showed technical advantages, can overcome geographic challenges. Proved distinguishing military from civilian targets becomes impossible in modern warfare. The legacy endures in multiple forms. Survivors advocated decades to have experiences documented. Katsumoto Saotome established Center of Tokyo Raids and War Damage. Preserving testimonies. Educational programs ensuring lessons reach new generations. International humanitarian law evolved partly in response. Geneva Conventions updated. Protocols protecting civilians, but precedent was established. Total war eliminated traditional protections. Modern warfare embraced comprehensive destruction as legitimate strategy. The story of Operation Meeting House illustrates warfare's evolution from limited engagements to total societal conflicts. Residential areas built over generations destroyed in hours. Advanced technology affecting civilian populations with minimal military involvement. Disparity between sophisticated weapons and basic defenses. The final accounting, 325 B, 29 seconds launched, 279 reaching target, 1,665 tons of incendiaries dropped, 15.8 square miles destroyed, 100,000 killed, 1 million displaced. Behind each statistic were individuals. American air crews executing orders, Japanese families in homes, children separated from parents, survivors dealing with profound losses. Operation Meeting House remains history's most destructive air raid. Not achievement to celebrate. Sobering reminder about modern warfare's capacity for destruction, where strategic objectives justify extensive civilian impact. Where entire populations become affected by industrial-scale conflict. Where technical superiority creates mathematical certainty of victory regardless of human cost.